So let's ask ourselves the question, when we are going to build our data model, how do we do this? And I always do this by asking myself the same kinds of questions. The first one usually is, where is the information coming from? From which table or tables do I need to fetch the fields? Which fields am I going to find? How are the tables related? Is the information available in multiple tables? So then which one am I going to approach? In what order am I going to do it? And so on. So thinking about creating the data model is the most important part of a report development. Something which can really assist you in this process is when you create an entity relationship model. That's actually a diagram in which you are going to map out the different tables and table relations so you understand where to find which information and how to combine the information. Now, getting this step right, creating the data model, is very important because based on the data model we are going to create our layout. So any changes that we are going to do in the data model at a later stage is going to have an impact on the layout, and in the worst case scenario you might have to completely redevelop your layout. So you have to get it right in the beginning and spend some time. So let me actually demonstrate this by using a practical example. So presume that you are asked to create a report to display the inventory by location. I'm going to ask myself some questions. Where is the information coming from? How am I going to create the data model? How am I going to create the layout? And I'm going to also do this by consulting the concerned key user or key users, because they usually know what information they would like to see in the report. As a developer, you might have a completely different view on the business process and on the kind of information that they really need. Very important is also that you try to comply with the company and design guidelines when you're already starting to thinking about how to build your report. For example, you need to know, am I going to also require company information? Am I going to put it in the beginning on that data model or at the end, and so on. So in this practical example, real-life example, you were asked to create a report about the inventory by location. In this case, we are going to ask ourselves a couple of questions. So let's have a look at the kinds of questions we should ask about the data model for this report. So let's apply this in our example when we are building our report about the inventory by location. Some questions that we can ask are actually presented in the following animation. Let's have a look. So when we are going to build our report, the first question is what is actually inventory? Which quantity field am I going to use for the inventory? What is a location? These are the main questions that we are going to ask. Do I need to include locations without any inventory in the report? Then when it comes down to the data for my items, am I going to have to translate the items? Am I going to have to include item substitutions or, for example, item variants, because we have that in the application? Do I need to include some cross-references about the items? Regarding the item itself, how am I going to present it? Am I going to use the number? Am I also going to have to use the description? And so on. These are all very important questions that we have to ask ourselves. For example, also, is there what happens if there is no inventory for an item? So to summarize this, for our items here we have actually an overview on the kinds of questions we have to ask ourselves when we are going to build the data item for our report.